Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am the Faithful Stamper, Jennifer Helm, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! In today's video, I want to show you a card with a real wow factor. This is called a Tri-Easel card. It is larger than your typical size card, so you need a different size envelope or to present it without one. And what's really neat is when you open it up, you have little easel props that help you lift up the front of your card for display. So it's definitely a unique design, but a fun one, and probably looks more complicated than it really is. So come along and I'll teach you how to make it. The first thing I recommend is a sheet of paper that is 8.5 by 11, and it's nice and bright green because I'm going to make a template with it. And I find that if I make it out of white paper, it disappears somewhere on my desk. So I'm actually going to make it in this nice lime green so that I can see it and know where it is when I file it away. And the first thing I want to do is cut a 1/4 inch off. So it's 8.5 inches this way. I just want to slip a 1/4 of an inch off so it's 8.25 by 11. And then I'm going to show you the template and the measurements. This is a template I saw on a Facebook group that was done by Pauline at I Can Create, or I Can Craft. So I don't know anything else about her, but she made this beautiful card for which I'm grateful. And so I take a ruler and a pen, and on the 11-inch side over towards the right, I just like to make a line. And I'm going to go ahead and mark the halfway point too while I'm here, 5.5 inches. And then with my line here, I just like to mark that the paper is 11 inches long. And then I turn it and just do another line and mark that this way is 8.25 inches. I'm going to flip it around to the bottom and mark that 5.5 point again. And then I'm going to match up my lines, but I'm not going to draw a solid line. So I'm going to match up my little tick marks, my 5.5 inch marks, and I'm just going to draw a dotted line. And what I want to do here is differentiate between my cutting lines and my scoring lines. And I write a note to score at 5.5 inches. Then I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to put a tick mark at 2 3/4 inches, and then scoot down and measure again 2 3/4 inches. And that will leave me a panel that is the same. So it's 3 panels that are 2 3/4 inches. So I'm just going to go back and connect my center line, that score line, with my tick marks. And these are going to be solid lines because I want to cut on these. And I'll put a note here in just a minute so I remember that. And then the last step for my template is to draw a diagonal line from the bottom left up to the top right of each of these 3 rectangular panels, and that's a dotted line because, again, I'm not going to cut on it, I'm going to score on it. And so once that's done, my template will be finished. And I just like to keep this handy as I'm assembling the card to make sure that my lines are going in the right direction. This isn't really complicated. This template really takes you just about the most time. And so I'm just going to make a note here that my solid line is my cut line and my dotted line equals a score line. And then one last thing, I like to put that these are 2 3/4 inches, and that way I just know at a quick glance what I'm dealing with. So there's my template all ready to go. I'm just going to set that to the side where I can see it. And then we are ready to go ahead and start on the actual card. So I'm going to pull over a piece of cardstock. This is 8.5 by 11. This is Sahara Sand, a nice neutral color. I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Trimmer. And this is great because it has a scoring tool and a cutting blade. And I'm going to cut that 1/4 inch off, so it's 8 1/4 and not 8.5. So that's step 1. Next, I like to turn the paper and put my score line in at 5.5. And that makes this next step easier. What I like to do is, keeping that score line in the middle, I slide my paper over to 2 3/4 inches and move my cutting blade to the top. And I'm going to cut to the score line. So I don't want to cut all the way through. And I can line up the little hash marks on the side of my trimming blade with the score line, so I know I didn't go too far, which is perfect for a project like this. And I could measure over 2 3/4 inches again, but I'm a little bit lazy. So I actually turn the paper over and measure in 2 3/4 inches again, but I'm going to slide this up so you can see. Once I line my paper up again, 2 3/4 inches, I'm just going to do the same thing, but I'm cutting up this time to that score line. That way it was less math for me to do. One more quick step. What I like to do quickly first is fold my card in half, and then I need to make those score lines. And I do that using the score blade, but I have to finagle the paper a little bit. This is the trickiest thing you're going to do in this card. I like to flip open the panel I'm working with, and I score from the bottom left up to the top right. So this is the trickiest of the score lines that I have to do just to get it to fit on the paper trimmer. And I just line up the corner, the top corner of my card there, and then this little bottom piece on that track. And then I run my scoring blade till I get to the score line here at the bottom. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to score on the back of the card. And if I don't go all the way corner to corner, I'm close enough that when I start to fold it, the paper's going to want to finish the fold naturally. So that's okay. And so I'm just going to repeat that. Same thing, score, not cut. And then one more. And you just have less paper to fool with if you fold the panels back as you work. And then this score line is the easiest one, because you don't have to worry about where you're running into. And while I'm here, I have 3 pieces of Designer Series paper. These are 5 1/4 by 2.5, and I'm going to cut these because these are going to decorate the front of my card. So I want to cut these diagonally. And this is again why I keep that template handy, just to remind me of which direction I'm cutting so that my patterns work nicely. So again, I'm just lining up my corners with the gully on my paper trimmer and then cutting the rectangle into 2 triangles. And I'm just going to repeat that with the other 2 rectangles that I've cut. You could very easily use 2 rectangles in the same pattern on the top and the bottom panels, and then one more in a different pattern. It's totally up to you how you want to design your card. And once you make one of these, you'll roll through any others that you make pretty quickly. So now I can put my trimmer away. And the next step is to glue a piece of Designer Series paper that is 5 1/4 inches wide by 8 inches tall. This is going to serve as the back panel to my piece. And this is Designer Series paper from the Sand and Sea Suite in our catalog. You can check that out at my website here. If you do not have a demonstrator you're already working with, I'd be happy to help you. If you'd like to see a paper catalog or if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. So now I'm going to use some Stampin' Seal and just put some around the edges. This is a great adhesive that tends to be camera shy for me. I promise they actually do work. Mine just does not like to work on camera. And so then this gets positioned on the back panel of the card. Now you might be thinking while you're doing this or watching me, where do I write my message? Now if you want to, you could put a message down here right along this edge, but it will show when you prop the card open. So I recommend putting a panel on the back, either a large size, which is 5 1/4 by 8, or you could do a smaller size, totally up to you. You could even write directly on the card if you wanted. You might want to do that before you do any more decorating the card though. But I'll show you what I mean when I am finished gluing everything. So now I'm just going to take these panels and glue them each on the rectangle where they belong. If you have a silicone mat handy, I highly recommend it for this because glue just rolls right off of the mat. And I like to make sure I get glue on my corners so they're going to stay put. It's very important. And this way, if I run over a little bit, I'm not having issues with it sticking to my work surface or paper. And a little tip, I like to flip my card open before I start gluing. One thing I forgot to mention, I go ahead and just fold on those score lines. And as you can see, my line didn't quite run to the bottom of this panel, but it's okay because the rest of the line is going to do the work, and then the panel will fold the way I want it to. But I like to do that before I start working on the card. It just makes that line stand out a little bit better for me to see. So when I take my Designer Series paper, I can see that line. And this is probably the trickiest thing that you'll do. Just trying to line these up. And that's okay. So I'm just going to repeat this. Again with my persnickety glue. But I love that I can use the silicone mat and not have to worry about glue sticking to it. If a little bit does, I can roll it right off with my fingers. Normally, I only think of using this mat for liquid glue or something like that, because then I'm not messing up my craft surface. Yep. For a second, I thought I flipped that upside down, but it's just the reverse side of my paper. The most tedious part of this is you watching me glue these panels on, right? That's okay. But I never thought to use that silicone mat with my tape runner before. I usually pull out a piece of scrap paper, and then I've got glue on the scrap paper, and I have to watch every time I want to position the paper and add a little more glue. And this, I don't have to do that. Like, where has this been all my life? And so just keep lining these triangles up with a little bit border around. Got a little glue stuck there. And then one more, and I promise we'll move on. See if I can get these two done quickly for you. And I don't feel the need to completely line the edges, but I do like to make sure I have it tacked down enough that it's not going anywhere. So there we go. And 1 and 2. And now I'm done with the glue. And I'm just going to decorate the front of the card and then put the little easel props on the inside so that you can see how the card works. Now you can use any kind of shape for decorating the front of your card. I am going to use seashells, keeping with my theme. So I have a sand dollar I'm going to put here on the top, layered circles in the middle, which I'm going to stamp a little sentiment on, and then a conch shell that I used from my stamp set, which I've neglected to show you. This is Friends Are Like Seashells. This is from our January to June 2021 mini catalog. And again, if you'd like to see one, if you're not working with a demonstrator, I'm happy to send you one. And then my inside props are going to be the starfish and the 2 seashells. Now the key with decorating the front is to watch your dimensional placement. Because if you glue them on, if I were to glue or put dimensionals on both sides, when I would go to stick it down, I would eliminate that easel effect. So I don't want to do that. So I like to see where I'm going to position my square, my sand dollar, whatever shape I happen to be using, and you'll get some ideas from the other samples I'll show you in just a minute. But I flip it over, and I like to grab, depending on the size of the shape, I'm going to put a large dimensional here, but I want a little bit more than just that one dimensional. So I'm going to grab 2 small ones and just give it a little more of a sticky surface here. And I check where my dimensionals are, flip it over, and then I can double check it and make sure, yep, I'm good. That still bends. And then I move on to the next one. I'm really quickly going to stamp. I have a Sahara sand tiny scallop circle and then a Seaside Spray slightly larger circle. I'm just going to stamp for you. This is not a card I did a lot of intensive stamping on since I wanted to show you the assembly for the card. Now a little more adhesive to layer this on, like so. And then for this one, I'm going to use just a couple of small dimensionals here on the bottom. And that should do. And a little tip for you, if you're gluing a shape on and, oh, that was close. Almost put those on kind of the wrong angle. But if you take a look and you make sure your angle works and you're looking at your shape and you realize, oh, I should have stuck a little more dimensional under there, just take a small one, peel the front and the back off, and just slip it right under there. Actually, I'm going to do that on this one, just to give that a little more anchorage and a little press. And I've got it stuck down so it's not going anywhere, but it still can't be seen and it isn't interfering with that easel technique. Now on this seashell, because it's a little different shaped, I have to use the small ones and spread them out a little bit. And there we go. So now I'm going to take these 3 shapes that I have for the inside. You could use 3 different ones, you could use all the same, totally up to you. I'm going to put 1 dimensional on the back of each one and pull the backings off. And what I like to do is I like to start at the bottom and work my way up, because I will lift up the easel portion, and I'm going to put my seashells at the top and the bottom, and I decide where I want my easel to stand up at. And I'm going to pop that little prop there, and then I'm going to continue with the next one. And this way I can kind of see, so I can line them up so it doesn't look like I'm swerving all over the road here. And then right up to the top. And there I have my easel card ready to go. You can see the little props and how they're doing their job. So, as I said, the card itself looks complicated, but it's really not. So just a couple samples for you to see. This features the Paper Bloom Designer Series paper, which is part of our Celebration sale that's going on right now. For every $50 or $100 you spend before tax and shipping, Stampin' Up! Lets you pick a Celebration item for free with your order, and this beautiful Designer Series paper is one of those $50 items. If you'd like to see more of those, you can check them out at my website. And so there is this beautiful card featuring the Paper Blooms Designer Series paper. And then just one more, And this features another Celebration item, two actually. One is the stamp set, which is a touch of ink. This is available with a $100 purchase. And this beautiful Berry Blessings paper is part of a $100 purchase as well. It's the paper and a stamp set. And this is probably my favorite. You can see where I just took little scraps of the Designer Series paper and popped them on these little squares, and those became my easel props. And I can't remember if I mentioned it, but I think I did. These were from a design created by Pauline at I Can Craft. And I'm so thankful that she shared this very unique design that I could try and share with you today. So she made a card very similar to this and the paper balloons, and then I designed this sand and sea card all by myself for you to see. So I really hope you enjoyed that Tri-Easel technique. I hope you will subscribe to this YouTube channel and come back and watch more videos. You can also hop over to Facebook and find me at The Faithful Stamper, and I do videos every Monday and Friday night there. Thanks so much for watching. Happy crafting.